So thanks. Welcome all our esteemed panelists and participants today on World Mental Health Day. We are happy to hold a discussion on mental and emotional well-being and online environment for children. Together, let's utilize today as a reminder to take care of your mental health, plus encourage others to do the same. This day grants us a great opportunity for governments, civil society organizations, educational institutions to come together and talk about steps we are taking and intend to take to make mental health care a reality for all.
So, hello everyone. I'm Shruti from the Center for Social Research, and I would like to extend a warm welcome to all the panelists and participants present here and begin by introducing our esteemed panel. First up is Miss Rashi Madnani. She's a CSR student ambassador and she's a student of class 10th from Brahmavid, the Global School, Chhattisgarh. Next is Miss Ekta Verma. She is the founder of the initiatives Invisible Scars and Purna Viram and is the head of strategy for Good Universe. She is also an executive committee member for the Society for Cyberabad Security Council. A parent herself, she is a seasoned professional with 23 years of experience working towards an equal society by fighting against gender violence in India. Next up is Mr. Suyash Gupta, the Senior Manager, Child Safety and Advocacy at Teach for India. He leads the team for all Teach for India regions. He works closely with city teams in ensuring that children are safe and healthy through education. And we have Dr. Sameer Parekh. He's a consultant psychiatrist with Fortis Healthcare, a leading healthcare of India, and is the director of the Fortis National Mental Health Program. He has authored several books, while two of them are written with children, teachers, education, and emotions as the focal point. And finally, Ms. Jyoti Vadhera, our moderator for today's event. Jyoti is the head of Media and Communications Department in CSR. So welcome everyone.
Thanks, Shruti.
Hello to everyone watching.
Hi, welcome all. Okay, so we at CSR, as you might already know, have been working to empower women and girls of India for the past 40 years. And the core of our work in the last decade has been to make the online spaces safe, secure, and inclusive for children and youth, especially women and girls of India and the world. Our team has interacted and empowered more than 150,000 youth and children on issues of online safety and digital well-being through various initiatives across the country, with the support of our partners like Facebook India. Today's virtual discussion on mental and emotional well-being and the online environment for children is an effort of CSR India and the stakeholders towards ensuring the mental and emotional well-being of children in a world driven by technology. To jump right into it, let's welcome Rashi. Rashi, we are glad you are here and we can hear your perspective today. So tell us something, how has this whole journey of COVID happening, the lockdown, schools shutting down, day-to-day schools happening online, a disconnect with your friends, and many more such changes that happened over the past almost 2 years. How are you and your friends coping? And are they even aware about mental health issues? Has someone taken the time to talk to them or provided any support?
First of all, thank you everyone, and thank you Benita ma'am for giving me this opportunity. This sudden lockdown has a deep effect on everyone in our whole world, not only students. In our whole world, there is a deep effect of that. And for I think Brahmavid students, it was not very difficult because we were already aware of all the online platforms that were now they are conducted in online platforms, the online classes. So we were already trained, and the design thinking and the problem scoping skills all were taught to us. That was very helpful and very useful to us. That was already, and we were already aware of all these. So thank you to Brahmavid, the global school, because they have really, they are really very supporting. The teachers are, you know, very soft and understanding. They also during online classes, they also gave their precious time and extra time to the individual students. That was very helpful. That helped us to solve our doubts in our study pattern. So it was very helpful. And also, yeah, that's the thing, that we were disconnected from all our friends, and that was quite a sad thing. But Brahmavid also made it possible. A beautiful circle times were conducted, and from in that we chit chat with our friends, and we had a beautiful circle time, and that was possible and interacting. But of course, the offline classes had a different atmosphere. Earlier, we enjoyed physically and interacted emotionally to our friends, but it was not very difficult. But we are accepting all the situations in our life now, and we are able to accept the challenges also. We are ready now. So yeah, but offline classes had different atmosphere, that is acceptable. We enjoyed, and the physical education classes were also conducted, but now online mode also, it was also conducted by the Brahmavid teachers. That Pam took us, and the dancing classes also were conducted. So it was very helpful.
Thanks, Rashi. Miss Vinita, your principal. Hi, ma'am. Again, welcome. So glad you're here. And so, ma'am, would you like to talk about some challenges that the students were facing regarding their emotional and mental well-being that the school noticed? And how was the school trying to help? We can imagine it was tough even for teachers to find connect with students, and the ability to remotely help was also a challenge. What were or are still the main challenges the students and even the teachers are facing in this regard?
Thank you, Jyoti. First, I would like to share about the teachers, because everything is dependent on the people, those who are able to do. The kids, they need support always. So we made it possible that in the beginning only, when they join the school, that time also they are guided that way. They have to be always poised. They have to be happy. So for making them happy, we tried from our side. So the physical activities, recreational activities, online also we did for teachers. Not only for the teachers, other admin members also were the part of it. Because what I think is, if I am happy, then only I can make my team happy. So first we worked on the teachers. It took, yes, it was very difficult. Many of the teachers were new that time. Those who were there with us, because my school is Google for Education, so they were, it was very easy for them to take the classes online. So this was not the point. Point was that my new teachers, they were not aware of the technology, and it was a very tough time for these new teachers. So slowly and gradually we could train them. And first point, why took care of their physical and mental health of the teachers. Later it will come on the students. So we were working on that, many counseling sessions and the webinars, and I would appreciate CBSE. Yeah, I mean, they also conducted so many webinars for the teachers, who means that they took care of the teachers. First thing was that I have to counsel the staff members to accept this positively, because it was not less for them. They also suffered a lot during this pandemic. But slowly, gradually, as we did for the students, same we were having the circle time for the teachers. We used to meet every day. We used to ask everything from them, how it is at home and how you are able to cope up. So all this we took care of that, and whatever we could provide from our school, that we did. First thing, that we are working on Chromebooks, because this is for Google. So each and every teacher was having Chromebooks. That was the first plus point for us. Second thing, I provided all the resources from the school we had in stock. We kept it ready for the entire session. So I distributed then and there the day the lockdown was declared, because we were not aware that how much time it will take. So it was distributed to the teachers, so it could be convenient to them to make the resources for the students to take the classes. So whatever we had, we distributed to them, and they nicely worked on it, and they were really positive that time. Many of the teachers, like students, also faced the same problem. Teachers also faced in the family, the member was suffering. Later, gradually, all the new and old teachers were in the same page. But one point was mandatory to all. They had to be very, very polite, very, very soft spoken in the classroom. And I should appreciate my teachers, all of them, because we are getting the feedback from the parents and the students. They were giving the same type of feedback. So it means I worked in the right direction. Then, yes, for the classes, sometimes the network issues the children were facing, and students were not able to join the classes. For that also we trained the team. So they used to call then and there. If first period the child is not joining, so we wanted to know why this child is not joining the class. Then when we talk, when we communicate, then only we are able to understand. So this rapport we tried to maintain this time. It helped a lot. It was not easy, that is true. In between, many the teachers also lost. One of the teacher lost her husband, lost many other family members. Same it happened with the parent and the students. Few students, they lost their mother or father. So that for that also, we as a school took care of that part, and we whatever we could do, either it is emotionally or monetary, we could help them. So this way I could help my kids to learn during this tough time. And I think I tried my level best with my team that children should be happy, and they should enjoy. But few of the cases when they had some issues, we had to really work on that. Physical activities we did online, and the competitions for physical activities we did, and painting, dancing, all the classes, these all activities, scholastic activities also we continued. So somewhat we could make them happy, and they were allowed to talk during that gap between the timetable. So sometimes we used to join, and we could hear them, like they were talking about the personal talks to each other. So this way it helped me to work on this, because the entire team was working on that part. So this was in my school.
Thanks, ma'am. Thank you for your inputs. Now, Haida, coming to you now as a parent yourself, and also someone who works on issues of gender-based violence with women and children. The pressures of the pandemic, online school, and social disconnect, what effect did it have on children's physical, emotional, mental well-being?
So first of all, hi to everyone. I hope I'm audible, and thank you for having me here. Thank you for this very important discussion, because all through the pandemic, I think the most neglected lot have been children. It's not that we are neglecting them on purpose. They just happen to be the population which has been most neglected, and nobody has actually taken up the effort of trying to talk about their mental health. Now coming to the pandemic, nobody has ever seen a lockdown like this in the past ever. I remember growing up as a child, I was always scolded by my parents. Why are you out of the house all the time? You're running here, running there, you're never home. And it was so heartbreaking for me to see my child stuck to a computer all day long, and not to discard the effort of the teachers, because all schools, all teachers have made tremendous efforts. So kudos to the entire teaching community for that. Having said that, when you see a child sitting all day long in front of the computer, hunched, and then, breaking off into small groups and chatting online, and, of course, they're watching videos, they have much more access to the internet content than they ever had in the past. And it was very heartbreaking, because there was practically no physical activity. These are kids who would go out, maybe play some games, play some sport, do some courses. Somebody was doing art, somebody was doing singing. So I think the first lockdown was very difficult. It took a toll on the children, it took a toll on the parents. And of course, there was not so much of, I mean, the pandemic was difficult, but I think a lot of the social issues were less around what was happening within families. When the second lockdown happened, we started to see deaths of family members, deaths of parents. We started to see much more. And then, of course, I think there was some statistics I read somewhere that like about, I think 4 million or some odd number, I'm not exactly sure of the number, have actually dropped out of school with no access to any form or any means of online education. So mental health of a child who's been impacted by COVID and the lockdown of physically not being able to go out, then that child loses somebody in the family who's close. It may not even be a parent, it may be a grandparent or somebody. And then the child is looking at the parents who are equally stressed out all the time, and then having to do this whole online schooling. It was like so many layers of issues with children. And eventually, what is happening to children today, I think as an outcome is they are less, they've lost that whole social ability to network with their friends, and they're doing it online. So I kind of remember the time when I was working in an organization where we had these cubicles to sit down and work, and we would all chat with each other. There was very little human interaction. We would all sit in the same cubicle, but most of our conversations were on chat. It kind of took me back to that same time where children are wanting to interact online, but physically now they are not wanting to move out of that comfort zone. And for us to say that, today you're sitting for 1.5, almost 2 years on your system, doing your studies and doing everything, and then you suddenly get up and you start going out to play games, and because things are opening up, or you do your courses, it has just been so difficult to navigate as a parent. And I'm sure even worse as a child, because as a child, you're not even able to express those emotions because probably you've not even comprehended them. So thank you so much for this discussion. I hope we are able to tackle at least some of the layers. My bigger worry as a parent is, what if my child is not interested in socializing anymore? Where is that physical space? Does my child want to go out? Does she want to meet other people? How is she going to be a team player if she's constantly sitting on her system all the time? So a lot of questions plague parents, bring us a lot of insecurities, but I guess we'll have to fight through this.
Definitely. As a parent myself, I have very, very similar thoughts, Ekta. And which is why this whole discussion also is a very personal, like I was looking forward to this personally as well. Now coming to you, Suyash, quickly, we absolutely appreciate how invested you are in your students' all-round development and the support you give us in reaching each one of them. As you work so closely with children from all stratas of society, would you like to highlight any specific issues faced by your children given the current scenario? The pandemic now starting to being called an endemic, school shutting down and now reopening. How are the children dealing with it?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jyoti, for this, and thank you so much for having me here. Before I start and sharing about the challenges that my students and my children are seeing, I'll just give a bit of context of what is the work I do. So I'm Suyash, and I work in an organization called Teach for India, and we teach children from under-resourced communities. So we provide full-time teachers to government schools and low-income private schools. So generally, the children that we are taking care of are from under-resourced communities, and their average monthly family income is like from 5 to 10,000. So I remember, if I go back to like last year, April, how everything changed. And I saw in April, like April first week, I was just running around to get food to my children. We saw the reality changed overnight, and just the impact it had on the children. I was getting calls from students that bhaiya kal ke liye chawal bacha hai bas. So when we saw such challenges there in our communities, it was a huge horror and a huge shock. The access to school, the physical space where children used to go, it vanished. And it also got me thinking, what is a school? So on that front, I was thinking school is not just a place for learning. School is a place for holistic development, where you go there and I have my safe space. I, as a child, have 5 friends to talk to. I, as a child, have principals, have teachers, have that social ecosystem to talk to process what I'm going through. And last year in April, all of that cut off. And what I saw, that children, they ended up being locked up in their, so because of their socioeconomic condition, they stay in community, under-resourced communities, and they have like a 1-room or a 2-room apartment kind of a thing. So they were staying there and they were locked in, and there was no jobs and no financial safety and security. Because of this, since last year, I saw a huge surge in cases of domestic violence, huge surge in cases of just emotional abuse, mental health cases. I was just analyzing certain data. In the past 2 months, I have received around 26 cases of abuse from a batch of 10,000 students. And out of those, those 26 cases, around 19 cases are of like mental health issues, domestic abuse. So that has skyrocketed, that has increased. And when I also go back to data, I see in last year, Childline has reported that 1.5 times cases have been reported of abuse. So something that I am understanding is, because of the lack of access to that physical space to school, there has been an exponential rise of cases of abuse, and there's been just like a general challenge on the well-being and the learning of students. We also like after the first year of pandemic, I hope it ends soon, but yeah, after the first year of pandemic, what we saw that the 3 things that our students were struggling in a lot were foundation literacy, numeracy, and second was social emotional learning, just their mental health. So for that, we were like, okay, let's create a curriculum that will cater to the mental health and the foundation literacy and numeracy of our children. And since then, it's been like, otherwise also we create like how we are creating a safe space in our classrooms. But now the challenge is how we are creating that in an online space, how we are creating like regular spaces where children are coming, they're talking, they're having conversation, they're able to process. And if yes, if some kind of abuse is happening, then how, firstly, are we making children aware of what is abuse? Then are we able to capture that, okay, abuse has happened? And once it's there, are we able to provide effective redressal in the short term, that, okay, it's addressed now, and in the long term, so that the student also gets in an emotionally safe space and is able to counter the challenges that are there. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can go on and on with the stories that are there, but I like to pause in the interest of time. If you have any probing question, or if you want to ask me anything, you may go ahead.
No, I think this was, so the reason why we're doing this today is because we, as CSR, we believe that educational institutions, families, communities, we need to all come together and make mental health a priority. So which is why discussions like these are there. We want to educate, first of all, ourselves, the stakeholders. So it's very good that Suyash, you brought all of these points up. You know, of making social emotional learning also, we want to push that agenda also on educational institutions and policymakers. It has to become a part of the daily curriculum in every school and families. And even as parents, for parents, this curriculum has to, you know, somehow be brought on to educate the parents on the effect their emotional mental well-being has on the children. Which is why I'm coming to you now, Dr. Parekh. You have heard all major perspectives. You know, we wanted to highlight, we wanted a student to speak, an educational institute, someone like Suyash, who works closely with children from all stratas of society. What are the major concerns regarding the rapidly changing environments for students, and how should key stakeholders like ourselves in the well-being of our children deal with it better? What can we do, and what can students do themselves, coming from your point of view as a professional?
I think we need to reflect, just reflect on one thing first. The theme of this year's World Mental Health Day was mental health in an unequal world. So when I listen to Vinita ji and I listen to Suyash ji, you see the unequal world. First, understand that. When we talk about a mainstream school in an urban city in a world that is talking about iPads or access of computer, and we talk about any school that can be anywhere in the world which is away from mainstream, where education is also linked to malnutrition. Because a midday meal may be the most significant meal that a kid is getting, and understand this inequality. Understand that where corporal punishment in schools drastically reduced because children weren't meeting teachers. Aggression or violence and abuse at home increased because spaces changed. Understand that inequality. And now understand our own lack of understanding when it comes to mental health. Did we need COVID to have this conversation? No. All of you here, as a parent, a principal, an educator, Suyash, you from CSR, students, mental health issues have been there pre-COVID. We've been sitting on the epidemic of mental health for years. COVID just brought distress out at a sudden moment of cross-section of our lives where we were most unprepared, that today we are even talking about it. And that's what one needs to understand. So we wrote a mental health curriculum, I think 4 or 5 years back. This mental health curriculum is a 5-module training for 45 minutes per module, free of cost, available for any school or teaching community across the world. You give us a call, let CSR give us a call, Suyash, give me a call and say, I have these 100 teachers, sir, train them. We'll train them in take mental health curriculum to teachers, and it's a very simple format. And we need to understand, in a country as diverse as ours, outreach has to be our first goal. Basic guidance has to be our first goal, not complex PhDs. Basic guidance. So mental health curriculum. Now this curriculum is already available in 2 languages. The 3rd and 4th are coming soon. And this is an absolute free initiative. So you just have to call. And this was 4 years back. The surprising thing is that we've done it in schools in UAE as well. And we're still trying to reach a lot many more schools in India. Where I'm coming from is we must understand solutions. We just lose ourselves in the problem and have a very honest mirror view to life. There is inequality. One rule does not apply across the board to everybody. So we can have a conversation of making safe digital spaces for one kind of a population, and the other population, we need to figure out a way to get them on the digital spaces. So understand the diversity and inequality that is there. And then let's look at what we can do. I strongly believe mental health curriculum should be integrated in schools. There is no question around it. The only way to integrate it in the schools is train teachers. Because schools, you have 10 years of a child in a structured, safe, organized environment. Mental health curriculum is not to be taught like a subject. It's a part of a conversation that will happen in the environment of the school for a decade. And you cover the basic 5 or 6 principles of mental health curriculum, and we'll be happy to have a conversation on that. That's one part. Second, bring psychological first aid to our lives, bare minimum when it comes to interface with children. So what Suyash gave an example of a child calling and saying kal chawal khatam ho raha hai was a psychological first aid, not just a first aid of life, because that child had trust, got hope, could have easily lost hope, could have felt low, and got hope from a safe factor who, by providing for food, also took care of mental health. That psychological first aid. The first interface, आपने क्या बात करा, आपने क्या सुना, आपने कैसे रिस्पॉन्ड किया, नॉन जजमेंटल, नॉन स्टीरियोटिपिकल, नॉन ब्लेम, दैट साइकोलॉजिकल फर्स्ट एड. एंड वी डोंट टॉक मच अबाउट इट. एंड साइकोलॉजिकल फर्स्ट एड क्या, सिंपल सी चीज है, आप WHO का लुक, लिंक, लिसन, क्या वो बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स नहीं है? लर्न टू लुक, learn to listen, learn to link. And we need to incorporate some of these things in our day-to-day functioning, parents, teachers, educators, NGO sector, everybody. And then let's talk about how to do safety in digital spaces. The only way of digital safety is media literacy. Media literacy starts with adults as well. It's easy to tell a young person not to be on the phone, but it's not possible if you yourself are not on the phone as well, right? We need to understand that when you give a young kid an internet access, no matter what firewalls you use, a child would still be able to get access to things that you don't want the child exposed. And your solution is not giving the phone, not giving the access, saying don't go on social media. Nobody is going to respond to that. Let's not even take that route that said don't use social media. We will need to reach how best to use social media so that harms can be reduced. That's your best case scenario. If we get a 60 on 100 or around that success with social media usage with young people, it will be a brilliant job done. Right now, we are not even at 10 on 100. And our only approach is exam mat lo, don't use social media. And that's not going to work. And before I wind this conversation, I want everybody to remember 2021 for one reason, especially educationists and parents. This is the 1 year when board exam did not happen. And life continued. And these kids who did not take board exams are going to be thought makers of tomorrow also. Highly successful people in years to come also. So let's understand with honesty, marks in a board exam are not a differentiator. Marks are important in life in their own way. I'm a doctor, medical expert. I'm not going to be hypocrite and say that my career wasn't shaped by my academic pursuits. But we also need to understand that overvaluing academics over overall development cannot be the solution for education in years to come. So if you don't prioritize mental health, if you're not realistic, if you're not honest, if you don't understand diversity and diverse needs, understand outreach as a goal, understand what you learn from one and how you apply it another, if some of these things we'll be able to understand, that is the only way forward. There is no other substitute for this. And yes, all responsible stakeholders need to be a part of it. What CSR is doing is absolutely brilliant. What CSR India is doing is remarkable. I've read a lot about what Teach for India does, so Ash, it's very inspiring. But we need so many more of these and so many more of collaboration and public-private partnership. Responsible role by private entities, including corporate India, has to be there. If all that doesn't happen, then these will continue to be coffee table discussions, highly stimulating for 45 minutes to 50 minutes, and then you are lost in your hibernation all over again.
Thanks, Dr. Parekh. We're trying very hard for this not to stay within the 1 hour or 45 minutes limit. And I hope our efforts bear fruit and we can, I think something that really hit home with me was the exam, how you mentioned exams didn't happen. And I think especially, and if this is my personal opinion, especially in the Indian context, I think parents and teachers and in general, we needed to wake up to the fact that marks are not everything and life still goes on. And now moving on, thank you again. I would like to highlight here that, we at CSR believe that it is time that we take mental and emotional well-being of students a lot more seriously as we work closely with them on all issues of online safety and security. And a big part of our work is focused on their digital and mental well-being. And we want to thank Facebook India for the support we have received in our endeavors. Rashi, Now coming back to you, how do you think your family, school, or even your friends can manage their emotional and mental well-being a little bit better now that you've heard a few of us speak about that? Or to put this in a better way, how can we make the changing of your world so rapidly easier on you and your peers?
Ma'am, I think for emotional and mental well-being, early in the morning, meditation and yoga is the most essential thing. It's just, I even in lockdown I find it very boring that mom, I can't do this boring things, but she told me, she supported me, and I agreed to it, and I finally started doing meditation. It helped me a lot. And also, ma'am, working in laptops and mobiles for more than 4 to 5 hours in a day is very hectic, and it's just uh, it creates a headache and tension, and all the we have to spend on laptop. That screen, the rays are very harmful. Almost 80 to 90% students in this 2 years have got spectacles. Even I got spectacles 1 month before only. So, ma'am, the exercises and the meditation is very helpful. It also helped me to concentrate on the studies. Sometimes I was not able to, I was distracted by all these mobiles, social media, but I just started meditation. It helped me a lot. So I think I also suggested my friends to start this and also do this. So it can be helpful to them also. So I just started doing yoga.
Thanks, Rashi. So, Vinita ma'am. Ma'am, now that you've heard most perspectives, what do you think educational institutions like yours can do to make mental health a priority for all involved, so our students can cope with the pressures a little better? Do you agree with adding a mental health curriculum to the students' day-to-day education?
Yes, Jyoti, that is true what Dr. Sameer has shared. That is correct only. But as I shared in my, when I shared about my school, so it has to be there integrated. It should not be, specially curriculum created for this. This is the feeling actually. It is not to be shown or written anywhere. So if we are trying from our side, whenever we find, the teachers are also trained. We are doing that also. Like whenever you find a child is sad, or you are thinking that is looking little different from other days, so teacher has to take care of that child. And we have the counselor as well, but the teachers are the best counselor, what I think so, because she meets the students every day, and she knows what type of child she or he is. So teachers are doing that, but still it is needed. What we have seen after pandemic, the changes in the meeting also, the parents have shared, he was the best student of the class and now he's not interested to study only. So if you talk about grade 8th or 9th or 10th, in these classes we cannot take so lightly. It means something happened to that child, that's why the interest has gone. So these things, yes, it has to be taken care more in our institutions as well. And yes, that whatever, thank you, Dr. Sameer, whatever you shared, that it has to be the part of, not curriculum actually, but should be taken in the schools.
So let me just help you understand this. What does curriculum mean here? Curriculum, a mental health curriculum, which is a very well established fact. There are various countries which have incorporated. Mental health curriculum is not taught like a subject to students.
Correct.
It is not taught in a classroom blackboard kind of concept. It's a training given to teachers where they utilize their regular conversations over a period of decade with some basic modules which are tick in the box, which complete the curriculum. Step 1, understanding the importance of mental health. Now, you don't take a lecture on it, you have a process on it, but you need to learn how to do it. Second, understanding what is mental illness, because be very clear, 50% of all mental ailments start by the age of 14 years. The UNICEF report that came a few days back has talked about 1 in 5 children, adolescents worldwide have a mental health issue. So understanding what is mental illness, which is second part of the model. Third part is how do you end stigma, which means language. Fourth, how do you enhance self-help seeking behavior? When children can freely ask someone for help. If you don't have the milieu, and here again I'm coming to the Chawalwala example Suyash gave. If for the past several months or years of his interaction with this particular student, the rapport, trust, destigmatization, comfort wouldn't have been there, the child would not be able to ask for something. So that's your fourth component. Fifth component is building resilience through skills. And sixth aspect is creating a culture of well-being in the classroom. When you create a culture of well-being in the classroom, classrooms represent society, it transfers there. So the curriculum, whether we do it today or whether our policymakers decide over a decade, mental health curriculums will be there in all schools in the world. The question is, are we going to wait for somebody to tell us that? Or are we going to learn from best practices across the world and understand that the time for mental health curriculum is now? And if COVID hasn't opened those eyes, we need to open our eyes.
Correctly said, sir. So that is why the plan means whatever we have learned from all this, this is the plan that we will be working. Basically, as Suresh also shared about that part, whatever he's doing, it is really appreciated. But our type of schools, physical education as well as mental education, if we take the topmost priority, I think everything is done. When we talk about the physical fitness and the health, then obviously the mental health is also improved. So that part, surely we are, as a school, surely we will be taking on top priority. Studies, academics comes later. That is what I think about the schools. So thank you, sir, for giving the important points, inputs in that. It will also help us to work on our plannings.
Great. I love the interaction between panelists, the whole reason why we're here. Coming to you, Suyash, what do you think about the inputs you've heard till now? And I would love for you to add to them, keeping in mind that our aim is to support our students, not just physically or academically, but mentally and emotionally as well.
Yeah, so lovely interaction between Dr. Sameer and Vinita ma'am. And like I also resonate with what both of them were saying on how the mental health, social emotional learning, that should become a core aspect of our everyday teaching and learning. On this point, I also think about how relationships are important. A relationship a teacher has with a student, how much of a safe space that classroom is, and the students and the teachers are vulnerable. They're able to share with each other. They're able to learn with each other. So, and why do I even say that? From 2016 to 18, when I was a Teach for India fellow, when I used to teach, my classroom, it had a theme of super khojis, that we are on a journey of discovery. And that was our safe space. So in that safe space, we could be vulnerable. We could share with each other what are the challenges we are facing. What is some victory that we have had? What are certain celebrations we have had? So that gave us a platform where, yes, we will be learning the conventional math, science. We'll be doing all of that. But when we are starting our day, we'll be having a morning meeting where we'll be having some discussion on something, so as to understand how the teacher and the students, how they are doing. So, and throughout the day also having lessons which are integrated, which has aspects of values, which has access of aspects of what is it that you're learning, how the things that you're learning, you'll go and apply in your everyday lives. How you are using reflection on an everyday basis, so that you're aware what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, and who are your people who you can reach out to for support. Once we, I think we do this, we are like how Samisa was also sharing that psychological first aid. We are also creating measures for mental health first aid, psychological first aid, where a child or like any individual is able to identify that, okay, something is off and I need to reach out to people for support. So hence, if I sum this up, it's about how we are building strong relationships, how we are creating safe spaces for each other, how we are making ourselves aware on our mental health, what triggers us, and finally, once all of this is done, do we have avenues for support? Do we have people who we can reach out to for support? And that can be like a teacher like me, who's like, I'm not professionally trained, but yes, I can listen to you. And if things get worse, can I reach out to a professional and get professional help and support? But one thing I think is definitely extremely important is having this conversation on an everyday basis in the classroom, and zooming out from the classroom to communities, in the teacher communities, with parents, with other different stakeholders as well, so that I don't feel alone when I'm struggling. I can reach out to people, and people don't label me as a person who's dysfunctional, but they are able to empathize with me and able to support me in that process. Yep, that's what I'm thinking right now. Happy to
Support
hear.
without judgment, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ekta, I've seen you smile and nod along to a lot of inputs that we've heard here. And we would love for you to add to this as a parent and tell us what you agree with and whatever you've heard, and what else as major stakeholders we do, and by we, I mean family, school, civil society, even the children themselves, for a safe and secure all-round development.
So I'm going to present a bit of a contrary view as a parent, because what I'm going to say is going to be pretty much based on what Dr. Sameer highlighted, that, mental health was always an issue. We were just sitting on it, and so far we have not done anything for it. And yes, this sensitization that he's talking about, this is so necessary, not only to teachers, it is necessary to parents also. I work in the space of domestic violence. I have parents who are going through a bad relationship, and then the child is also subject to that. And so that's like another level of issues when we talk about mental health of children, and we are referring it to it specifically during this period. So we know that cases during the entire lockdown, cases of domestic violence have gone up, and 92,000 calls in a short period of time to child helpline. All of those statistics are glaring in our faces. As a mother who has raised 2 children with ADHD, I have very personal experience with mental health. What I feel, and I have a 15-year-old, incidentally, who's in 10th grade. And every time she sits to do the mathematics or the physics or the whatever is required as part of the curriculum, my blood actually boils, because she's so much better. And for those of you who know my daughter, you know that she's an ally of the LGBTQ community. She's a very outspoken social activist in her own age group. She speaks to younger children about about issues that matter to society. And when I see this child sitting and struggling with physics and geography and history, it really makes me feel, what the hell is our education system all about? What are we doing over here? So not to get into the discussion about the education system, but to sort of highlight that, like Dr. Sameer said, that we have realized that boards are absolutely unnecessary. And at least as a parent, we don't, as a family, we don't exercise any pressure on our children to get this mark and that mark and this and that. But what we have seen is a curriculum should have some activities in it. We have zero activities in our curriculum. Nowhere do we have, I mean, when I was a kid, we had SUPW, right? So there was arts, there was craft, stitching was there, woodwork was there, and children could choose. There was not so much, I mean, the competition has become so intense. The peer pressure is so high that even if we tell my daughter to relax, she is worried about what her peers are doing. And that is not adding anything to her mental health, because along the way, they will all have different journeys. Every child will have a different journey. And we are not helping that journey by putting them in this standard, cutout that we expect them to adhere to. I think it is also time that we started having a discussion about how to change the education system, the overall education system. Where do we draw a line with the subjects? Where do we put in more? And of course, this is a discussion for people who are taking care of the education sector. But where do we put in more activities? I would like my child, I mean, my child loves gardening, and I've seen that every time she's sitting around her plants and her flowers, she's a happier human being. She's singing to them, she's excited, she's happy around them all the time. I would rather have her, singing to her plants than, pressurizing herself over a physics equation which she is not able to manage. And I know personally, because I was never a student who liked science, but there was always this pressure ki science karna hai, and I'm sorry I'm breaking into Hindi, but I think it's time we relook our entire syllabus. What is it we want our children to achieve? Do we want them to, I can give you statistics on how many unemployed engineers we have, how many engineers are doing 5,000 rupees, 6,000 rupee jobs. That's not going to get us anywhere. And all of these as a society contribute to the mental health. I mean, children are already in a lockdown. Children are already physically inactive. They are not going anywhere the whole day, and then we are expecting them to excel with their marks. We are saying, we have these junior MBA programs and second grades engineering preparation and all of that. We are not subtracting issues from their mental health, just so that we understand that it's not only sensitizing of teachers. That is definitely a very important aspect of the whole discussion. It is also about understanding where to draw the line with these children. Do we want a generation of psychologically impacted children? Because this is the generation that's going to grow up. These are the people that are going to take over positions of power. These are people that will have residual mental health issues due to whatever they have faced. And I'm not saying it's only COVID, because all of this continues even post-COVID. One of the things that I feel is that we should talk about mental health. Of course, more open discussions. I'm very, very open to helping Dr. Sameer in whatever manner, as a parent, I can support. Having said that, I feel we need to relook the entire system of education. And I think, for a child like mine who has access to mental health resources, we will run to the counselor the second there is an issue. What happens to children who are with Suyash? Working with Suyash, where do we get mental health? Tell me 10 psychologists who will come and do counseling sessions for free if a child is facing mental health issues. They will come from marginalized environments. They will be in deeper issues. They will have hunger issues, violence issues, a lot of these issues. Of course, I mean, these exist in the urban area also. So not to say that there is a socio-economic this thing to it, but there would be a lot more. Tell me of 10 people. So I think people also need to come forward. How many mental health professionals are having this discussion we are having today? Tell me how many mental health professionals have said, okay, I will give 1 hour of my day every day to someone who's marginalized, right? If somebody needs counseling, someone needs help. How many people are coming forward to say, if you notice, if you have a help at home, and you notice that their child is struggling, how many of you are actually stepping forward and saying, oh, I will manage your child, okay, let us get you some help. We don't have these resources. We have not built up mental health resources anywhere. Our education system is competitive. It is so hardcore that we expect that children will become competitive, and then baad mein they will become team players when they grow up. And then they are not those team players because they're always fighting when they're in school and college, and then we say ki achhe performers nahi hai, they're not team players. So it is not only mental health as in today, it is what happens to this entire generation of children when they grow up and when they are adults and they take over the world. where is that leading? So I think we need to relook a lot of things. But the best starting point, yes, can be sensitization of teachers. I agree with that, like 200%. And I probably said it multiple times, so I don't want to get into the whole repetitive mode. But as a parent, I feel very strongly that my child is wasting her time during her boards, struggling with subjects when she could be doing so much more in her life with respect to the talents she has.
So let me just bring a perspective here of data to get an understanding of how the mental health expert scenario in our country is. Right? Worldwide, low and middle income countries have a ratio of 2:1 lakh. And high income countries have a ratio of 70:1 lakh. We currently are at a shortage of anywhere around 500% of experts in our country. Those experts are largely disproportionately in more urban areas. And as we go to an outreach of our country, that number comes down. We will, in the next few decades, also not be able to reach those numbers which will be able to bridge this gap. We first need to understand that. And that's why I have been talking for the past several years about how do we create more layers so less expertization is required, because expertization is not a solution in mental health for our country, because there aren't enough experts. So you need layers. In schools, basic counseling skills, mental health curriculum, life skills, psychological first aid as prevention, early detection. At community level with RWAs, neighborhoods. Then through the NGO sector. At primary healthcare level, which is crucial, training of primary healthcare physicians, Anganwadi workers, people working at the ground level, giving them basic mental health guidance and education for early immediate intervention. Re-understanding the role of the family physician. Family physician holds the key to the mental health solution of our country. To be able to filter and reduce how many people will go to a clinical psych, a psychiatrist, so on and so forth. And these are the approaches, and frankly, using digitalization. Digital India has been one of the most important aspects when it comes to mental health outreach in our country. Today, sitting here, one has brought costs down, one has brought commuting time down, accessibility easy. Now we need to ensure how do we utilize Digital India, take it to a larger population, integrate it with primary and preventive mental health care. That's where the solution is.
If I also may add one data point to this, and just like +1 to what Ekta ma'am and Samir sir was sharing. I was just like analyzing data of our students' health, mental health, and physical health. And what I could see last month, for like 9,000 students that we work in Delhi, 7,700 students are fit and healthy. And I think about the 1,300 students who are struggling either physically or mentally, emotionally, socially, who are struggling. And I think that, okay, if we have to get like expert help and support to these 1,300, that's an Herculean task. So, and I'm also thinking, are the 1,300 students, are they able to function on an everyday basis? Are they learning? Are they taking care of themselves? Are they being a part of the society on a whole? And something that makes me realize is that every day they go to a class. May that be an online class, may that be like a physical classroom space, like the older grades have opened. So because they are entering that space, they are getting to establish relations with teachers, with their friends, and they're able to process what they're feeling on an everyday basis. And hence, like again, my point of relations and establishing those safe spaces. Once we have that, then I think out of the 1,300 number who are physically, mentally, socially unsafe right now, we got 20 cases who are, of course, there will be a cases will be extreme and which will need professional support. But the 1280 students are still managing their emotions and their mental health, their how they are also consuming the internet by being in touch with their didis and bhaiyas, like their teachers and their friends. And the rest 20 who are struggling, we get hold of them, as in we identify those cases and get professional support.
So you are spot on, because what you just explained is the only way it can work. Because if you would have tried to take 1,300 kids for expert help, we don't have so many experts in our country. Let's be very clear about it. So the only solution was empowering your various people working, bringing that number down, and then having experts who join in and support you. I mean, frankly, the brilliant work you do, just give us a call. Yeah, you tell us, we'll do it. I mean, as simple as that. We've been working closely with CSR India, with Kailash Satyarthi Foundation, with Bachpan Bachao. Just give us a call. We'll be there and we'll support at whatever level we can. I mean, without any doubt.
I just really like what's happening here. This
Jyoti,
is the whole reason why we are together. Yes, ma'am, please go ahead.
If you allow, one point is there that yes, we have talking about mental well-being here, and what Miss Ekta has shared. This is one of the biggest factor actually affecting the kids when we talk about the marks and the grades. And the same time, now we had started our school in, I just want to give the example. When we started our school, the parents used to say that इस स्कूल में एक्टिविटीज बहुत ज्यादा होती हैं मैम दैट पॉइंट यू रेज्ड so we were what to say means we were appreciated or they were saying for this that we should not go to this school, but ma'am, thanks to this pandemic they understood how important the activities were. So we used to do in pandemic as well whatever they had at home, we did like anything, creating something new. Teachers were taking the workshops for understanding what do you like, assignments given in the different forms. The 4 kids are there, suppose 6 people are here, he dance well, then we will be giving dance to this child on the same topic, and giving writing poetry on the same topic, giving something painting to this other topic. Then thank you ma'am, you reminded me. And this now parents, now they came for the meeting and they shared, ma'am, thank you so much. We used to say this earlier, but that only helped us during the pandemic. We used to do activities with the kids. Even we were involved into it and they liked like anything. So thank you, ma'am, for reminding this to me. And it is really one of the factor which can, improve our mental health. When we are engaged, we are doing something creative, what we like. Always it is helpful. No other medium is there that will be, helping at that moment when you want. So this was my point, Jyoti. Thank you for allowing me.
Lots and lots of good points have come out, and I'm so glad, because this was the reason why we all got together today. And actually, we are running out of time, but we have some questions coming from our student ambassadors. We're extremely proud of them. Shruti, would you like to take this forward quickly?
Sure. So this question is coming from our student ambassador, Biren Kumar. So Biren is a class 12 student from Carmel Junior College, Jamshedpur. He's a national level golf player, champion swimmer, and a student pilot. He's extremely active on social media and passionately helps CSR with their online safety workshops. And we would like Biren to ask and put his question forward.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having this wonderful discussion. My question is for Dr. Parekh. Doctor, what I do when I feel that someone in my peer group is in mental distress, how can I help my friend? Like, how do I go about?
Young man, first of all, you do so much. The description only was brilliant, right? It gives so much positivity. I meet young people and it just gives me hope. So just keep doing what you're doing because it's remarkable. And what is better, music to my ears, that you're also attached to cause. And I think that beta in itself is a solution. Where more and more young people your age become attached to causes, support cause, support what matters to them. That's the solution. To the specific answer to your specific question, I've been talking about this for a while. Peer to pillar. Peers need to become pillars. How do you do that? By genuine compassion, genuine care, genuine communication, and support. Where we struggle, we try to impose our views, we become judgmental, we give too many do's and do nots, we impose, that's where concerns happen. But peers as pillars is the strongest support system throughout our lifespan. My best pillars continue to be my school friends, 30 years after passing school as well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So I would now like our student ambassador Rashi to put forward her question. So over to you, Rashi.
Thank you, ma'am. I have a question for Dr. Sameer Parekh, sir. How can I help eliminate the taboo of asking someone for help for among my peers?
Honest answer, beta, we ask for help in any case. It's just that we have redefined the nature of help we ask, and that's why this confusion happens. So if you don't know a homework, you do take a copy and copy it at times. That's also asking for help. Or if you are playing a sport and you want help from somebody to score a goal, you ask for help. When you are wanting to, you've missed out your favorite show, or you want a reminder on a favorite online streaming that you watch, and a friend to remind you and say, ye yaad dila dena, that's also help seeking. Help seeking is asking for anything that matters to you. Now, we have categorized and compartmentalized help seeking in a way that we have brought hesitation to psychology, emotions, and mental health. And that's why I was talking psychological first aid. We are okay learning physical first aid, which is very important, and we all must learn it. But the odds of your supplying somebody with psychological first aid in your day-to-day is so much more than physical first aid. That's about it. And I've been saying this to young people, unmute yourself. So you unmute yourself.
Unmute
There is a health issue or something, we don't hesitate to call someone and to talk to casually, just to tell to someone that we are just having a headache or something. But if there is a personal issue or something emotional issue, why can't we just tell people that we are my mind is not there? We just tell them about our physical health.
आप बात करके तो देखो, आप बात करके तो देखो, आप you'll talk to 5 people, I'm sure 3 will understand, if not 4. And the 5th person who didn't understand the first time, 10-12 बार बात करके उनको भी समझ में आ जाएगा. Normalization will happen only by talking. Yes, we should create safer spaces, but this is a safe space. You asked a question sitting there. I'm here. We've never met each other. In front of a live streaming, you were able to ask an important question. That's unmuting yourself. So many young people would have seen your question, got the confidence. Some of them will unmute themselves. If all of us keep unmuting ourselves, chain of communication.
This whole conversation gives me so much hope. We're actually out of time and we've exceeded our time. I hope we had like another hour and this could continue, because I love how we are interacting and cross-questioning and learning from each other. And I would just like to say thank you so much, all of you, for taking the time out and giving your inputs. We at CSR really appreciate every time you guys help us. We can't thank you enough. And yeah, have a nice day. Bye-bye. We wouldn't like to keep you more and take more of your time. But we will continue, we will definitely continue this conversation, and we will soon bother you with another time, another scheduled discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to Team CSR so much to have us. You know, this was the last topic I was expecting to be called for, but thank you. I could share my views.
Thank you, team.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.